Hello, everyone. Today I have a special guest, Sabrina Mati. She's a co-host on the Animation Success Stories podcast and has worked on many animated shows, including but not limited to Adventure Time, Uncle Grandpa, Rick and Morty Season 2 and 3, and is currently working on Matt Groening's new show, Disenchantment. Hello, Sabrina.
Hi!
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. That sounds flattering when I hear someone introducing me. Oh, and here's a dog over here. Sorry about that.
Hi, Doug. So these videos that I make are usually called Benk Made This, but today's one should be called Sabrina and Benk Made This, because this audio will be on top of us making or at least my part of making the illustration that we collaborated on.
It was beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. And back to you. It started off beautiful. So I want to ask you about yourself and the industry, but I guess first let's quickly talk about our collaborative illustration. What was the process for illustrating the pose?
So that picture actually came about because we were having an art gallery out here. Titmouse was hosting feminist nerd resistance art gallery, and I was actually going to be doing a pole performance, and I was dressing up as Princess Mononoke for my performance, and I thought, oh, like I can actually contribute a piece of art too for the gallery as well, if I had time. Unfortunately, I didn't actually have time to do both because I was so involved with working on the performance and the choreography and everything. So, and I ended up like revisiting that idea because I liked it so much, like drawing an anime character, on the pole, because I've never even actually seen that done either before. So I was like, oh, that should be fun. So. I went online, I looked up a cool pose that would match Princess Mononoke. That pose is called Daredevil, that trick. And then I used a reference photo for that, and then I just did my own take on it, my own style on it, and had fun with it.
Yeah, it turned out awesome. So what tools did you use for it?
I used Photoshop for that. That's pretty much it. I did the whole thing from start to finish in Photoshop.
And was that with like a Wacom tablet?
I have a Cintiq at home.
Awesome.
So I have a 22 HD. Yeah, awesome. And did you use like any reference things? I guess just searching for the Daredevil pose was your just searched on Google. You'd be surprised what Google can do for you.
Yeah. So after I asked you if I could color it, but before you actually sent me the image, I saved it off your Tumblr and made about 8 different color trials of like from the thumbnail. And then once you sent me the high res one, I printed that off and had another sheet of paper on top of it and did the painting on the sheet of paper on top and had a light box underneath so I could keep checking exactly where the lines were.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, then I scanned in my painting and superimposed it with your illustration and then digitally touched it up, and yeah.
That's awesome. I never really worked with traditional mediums, so that sounds really cool.
I love mixing the two.
Yeah, that's great. I should do that more often. I actually just bought a projector, and I plan on like doing like paintings in Photoshop and then projecting my image onto a canvas so I can trace it, like transfer it easily. And then, doing painting on the canvas and stuff. So I really need to do that more.
Yeah, a projector's been on my to-get list for many years for that reason.
There's some affordable ones on Amazon, I think.
Yeah, there are.
Shouldn't be too bad.
I just end up getting other things instead, other art materials. There's always expensive things.
Yeah.
So let's start with little Sabrina. Did you grow up in LA or did you move there for work?
So I unfortunately I've grown up here. I've been here all my life. I'm actually in the house that I've lived in all my life still right now.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I live in Chatsworth. I've lived here all my life. I'm still here,
same
and
house.
I really want to get out. Yep.
Have you moved house and moved back, or?
I moved once, which was only last year. I moved out temporarily to Van Nuys, which isn't that far. And then I was there for like 7 months, and then I moved back. But yeah, I've always been here.
I've moved twice in my life, where we are a rare breed, people that just pretty much stay. Yeah,
because everyone I know, I'm used to everybody being out from outside of state.
Yeah.
So, especially in this industry.
Yeah, totally. In LA, you would have a lot of people moving in.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And did you grow up with a creative family?
So, I think my mom was the creative, has always been the creative one. Not so much my dad. My mom is very arts and craftsy, so she like would decorate cakes and bake cakes a lot for us growing up. She had a really good hand for actually drawing on cakes too. She's really great with she has a big green thumb, so she's really great with plants as well, and, like floral decorations. She's even great with like sewing and stuff. So I think I got it mostly from her, and she always encouraged, like when I did draw, she always encouraged it and like loved it, and she was obsessed with it. She would be that mother that would take my drawings and like put it up somewhere, and then or brag to everybody about it. So
awesome. Yeah. So you had a maker in the house.
For sure.
And was there anything in particular that got you into art?
Cartoons, of course. I know my earliest memories of like my favorite cartoons were definitely Sonic the Hedgehog. That was one.
Amazing. There were actually a few Sonic cartoons.
So it was the one on it aired on I guess Toon Disney for a bit. It was the Goofy one with those two robot.
The Dr.
Robotnik. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, it was him, and then he had like his minions. They were like, it was like that green robot, and then the chicken robot or something. Or the robot or something.
I've seen them. I've seen them not from the show, but remixed in weird YouTube videos. They've popped up. Yeah,
it's so weird. But if you rewatch that show, it's actually kind of a good show. I like it. It's really goofy. And then also I played the games as well. Games had a huge influence too. And then Sailor Moon was a big one, as well as like Digimon and Pokemon and everything. Yeah. So those were the big ones as a kid.
Yeah. So you had kind of anime and Sonic. Was that a Japanese cartoon?
I think Sonic is. I don't know.
Is that American?
I don't know. I feel like I want to. No, it could be American. You know what? I don't know. We need to research
look into this.
I can't believe I've never looked into this.
Yeah. Because it sounds like it was all Japanese.
Yeah, right? I feel like I want to say Sonic is Japanese, but then I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, Sega is Sega. So...
Yeah.
I don't know. I
think...
See. Yeah, we'll see. My next question was, actually, if you had any favorite cartoons growing up, but you've already answered it.
Score.
Nice. So then you went to the Art Institute of North Hollywood, yeah?
Yes. Yes, and it is North Hollywood, not Hollywood. They call it Hollywood, but it's North Hollywood. Like, guys, you're not that cool. Yes, I did. In my opinion, it's not like a school that I would recommend to people or that I was very proud of going to. Like, I always hesitate whenever I say it, or when I do say it, I back it up immediately with, I know, don't judge me. Yeah?
Has it got a reputation, or you just feel...
It doesn't have a good reputation. A lot of the art institutes are getting shut down. I think the one in Santa Monica, I don't know if it's still up, but I heard that it was getting shut down. But a lot of them are getting shut down because they have like a huge lawsuit and everything. Because they're trade schools, they're for profit. So the one in Hollywood is still going. I don't know how it's been. I haven't really kept in touch with the people over there. I think someone from Rick and Morty, though, when I was on Rick and Morty season 2, Pete Michaels, he was a supervising director. He started teaching at AI when I jumped onto Rick and Morty at that AI.
Yeah.
And I would ask him about it. I think he's still teaching there. So you get your good people there, you know? But
yeah, it comes down to the lecturers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just the spirit of the students, you know?
That's true.
So,
some years are awesome, some... Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was a big thing.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
A lot of not serious people.
Yeah. Serious people make you inspired to do better.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you were in college, what did you imagine your professional life would be like?
I had no idea. I felt like it was going to be scary and intimidating, and just I felt like deadlines were going to be something that I was going to be really scared of, because I didn't know how it worked. Like, I didn't know like how fast people were in the industry, and you know, a lot of us, we are always taught like either to make sure like to get faster when we draw or something like that. I guess they make it sound a little more scary in school than it actually is.
Yeah.
But then when I actually got into the industry, on the art side at least, I learned that everybody works at their own pace, and you kind of everyone has like a healthy pace to work at. I've never really encountered a problem where like I had to like worry about how fast I was going, but I thought it was going to be more intense than it actually is.
Yeah. But was your aim to work in a studio, or did you have other ideas?
My aim was definitely, I wanted to work at Cartoon Network. That was one of my big studios I really wanted to work at. I did work there, but not in the arts, on the art side right away. Like, I did only just projects or like freelance on the art side. But Cartoon Network was definitely my number one goal. And then even to this day, I would still like to land myself in Cartoon Network eventually as an artist.
Yeah, as a more permanent role.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when studying, did you have any major influences that really, or even before, that really wanted you to be in the animation industry?
Influences... Miyazaki was always my number one influence. I've always like just hoped that one day I would make either a film or a series or something, have my own show eventually or something. That kind of like changed over time. But definitely Miyazaki was my number one. A lot of anime. I'd say a lot of anime.
Yeah.
It's a mixture of all that.
Yeah, awesome. And did you ever were you pretty confident that you would get into animation work, or did you have a backup plan for if this all fails, if it all falls through?
So yeah, I guess I always just told myself I'm gonna make it. I never really had anything telling me no, like I'm never gonna make it. Like, or if I don't, like I should maybe have this. Like, I always just told myself like this is what it's gonna be, you know, because I've been drawing since I was like in kindergarten, and I've been telling myself since I was like at that young age that I was gonna be a cartoonist or something. I was gonna work in the animation industry, and it was eventually gonna happen. There was a point during my college years that I did want to land in entertainment, like even if it wasn't going to be animation. I did want to do live action as well. So I kind of kept myself open to the possibility of just entertainment as a whole.
And what live action aspirations did you have, or do you have?
I kind of wanted to either work with camera equipment, like the tech side, or there was even a time I was obsessed with theater and like acting, or like singing or music or whatever. So I guess both sides, but even just working on cameras and like the tech crew kind of side, like interested me a little bit. I don't know. So pretty much anything. Yeah. So
that's quite different from what you do. So that's really interesting that's like a different passion that you've got.
I feel like production kind of like is all over the place. So like even if I'm in live action or in animation, there's always still the production side of things. So
Yeah.
I saw myself probably going into production first in live action, which is basically like you're making sure everything is going like running as smoothly, and you're organizing everything, So I could have been on that first, and then found out from that what I wanted to do specifically.
Yeah, because you get to kind of see everything and...
Exactly.
Yeah. So you got into the industry by applying to Turner, yeah?
Yes.
And
yes, definitely.
were you still studying at the time, or had you finished?
I was in school. I was applying for an internship. I think I was in my second or third year. No, I think it was in my second year of college, and it was right after my friend Nick. You've seen him on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He's our tech guy. He got an internship at Cartoon Network, and then his best friend was my boyfriend at the time. So like we both were like, oh hey, if he can do it, let's do it too. And then so we both signed up and everything. And he taught us how to do it. It was like a weird thing, like a weird process, because the website's weird.
Yeah. So when you did apply, you then got work on Adventure Time, yeah?
Yes.
And that's pretty exciting, because it was one of your main goals.
And it was the biggest
Cartoon
show
Network
at the time.
Yeah.
It was so weird because I didn't even choose the show.
Yeah, they just put you on it.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, I just want to work at Cartoon Network. And then they just like, when they called me, they're like, oh, we're going to be having you interview with Kelly Cruz, and she's with Adventure Time. Is that okay? And I'm like, yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So how big was Adventure Time at the moment? Because I know that like the animation industry has been aware of it since it was a pilot. I remember it just being a pilot, but it kind of exploded after a couple of years.
Yeah, I jumped on when it was already around season 5.
Yeah, okay.
It was so big that people at my school were literally, we have a lounge, we have a lounge at our school. And people would, on those nights that the new episodes would air, they would turn on the TV in that lounge, and then they would like all watch it together. And people would not stop talking about it around school. It actually got to the point where I almost got sick of just hearing the show itself. I was just like, I'm one of those weird people where if I hear something like talked about too much, I kind of like just shut out from it, because I'm just like, this is getting annoying. Could you guys talk about something else? At least in that school, because it's so small. And people were like even wearing, merchandise still, like constantly, like it was more visual, like everywhere. And then it was every single year I'd go to like Anime Expo or something. Even that time, like there were a lot of Finn and Jake's at Anime Expo and all that. So like cosplay.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty big.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what was it that you were doing for Adventure Time, being an intern?
So I was a production intern. Mm-hmm. So production intern, they don't do anything with the art. We work with the production assistant, the production coordinator, the producer, the production manager. So pretty much with production people. What I mainly did was I conformed storyboards, and I did a lot of like prepping designs, like design prep stuff for like the background artists. There was a way where like after they break down the board, you go through the backgrounds that they like they get ready to assign to an artist, and then you have to like isolate the characters in the storyboard from the background, so the background artists know like what they're working on and what to not focus on, like, or if there's any props or something that need to be pulled or something. What else did I do? I did a lot of little tasks here and there on Adventure Time, but conforming was like my number one thing that I had to do. Yeah.
And how was it going, like, straight into that role? Were you really nervous at first? Did someone kind of guide you?
I was nervous for sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, they did have like an expectation themselves where we all, like, they've dealt with people who weren't as quick of learners as most. So like they had a way to fill out their interns and then judge based on that, like on the first week or first day or so, like how they're going to handle their interns. But I was pretty confident, like even within the first day, because the programs that like, like Photoshop, I know Photoshop inside and out. That's what I was mainly working with. And then like I was working with the scanners and the scanning and copying room a lot. And I'm a quick learner when it comes to technology. And I'm fairly organized. So it wasn't that intimidating like after the first day. It was just a matter of like tedious work being done quickly.
Yeah.
So
once you got into
great.
it, you were just at work. It was fine.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then they made me feel a little bit better because I've never had a job before that internship.
Yeah.
So it was crazy how like they were really happy with me right off the bat, and I was just like, oh yay, like I've never been told that, and I've never tested myself like in a workplace, so this is great.
yeah like,
but being tech savvy really helps.
Knowing your software.
Yes.
And then after that you went on to Uncle Grandpa and regular show, is that correct?
Uncle Grandpa. I became a digital production assistant on Uncle Grandpa, which was basically I worked closely with the production coordinators, and I basically did a lot of my intern tasks that I did before, but on Uncle Grandpa. And then they also gave me eventually, like after a year, they gave me a little bit of like background design freelance on Uncle Grandpa, because I was like showing my artwork a little bit. And the art director liked my stuff, and then gave me a little bit of design freelance. The regular show thing didn't happen until I was on Rick and Morty, because my friend and I, Nick, we did there's an episode of Uncle Grandpa, the directed shorts or something like that. There's one episode where like a bunch of different directors like did little shorts, and they were all in different styles. And our Pete Brownbart, the creator of Uncle Grandpa, asked me and my friend to do a 3D animated intro, because he knew that we could do 3D, and he saw some of my friends from Nick's stuff. And he liked his 3D work, so he didn't really know like a lot of 3D people. He just knew us, and he knew that we were really like we learned that stuff a lot in school. So we did a 3D intro for them, and then Cartoon Network remembered us and how fast we did that project, because it was like a 2 months worth project, and they needed somebody quick for the regular show, the movie. They needed somebody to work on the title sequence of the movie. And they needed someone really fast, so they went to us. They're like, hey, these two people like did this in like this amount of time. Maybe they can do this.
That's so awesome.
So, yeah, me and Nick, we worked together on both projects.
Yeah, that whole the whole way that you kind of got from just being known to having like this other job to this other job. That's so great. Yeah,
that was cool. That it was actually the chief executive or something. Brian Miller of the studio, he actually reached out to us about that. So I'm glad that they kept us in the loop for that. I didn't expect that to happen.
Yeah. When you start a new job on a new show, how do you find the learning curve? Is it kind of like a massive first week, or do you find that generally, like with Adventure Time, after a day, you're kind of settled in?
Adventure Time was different because everything was just like doing technical work. So that's a little easier because it's a matter of just organizing things and getting into a workflow of just how you're going to organize everything. And once you get into that workflow, everything becomes easy after that. It just becomes like a monotonous routine. So yeah, as far as art goes, art is a little interesting because when you're on a new show, which I have been, after Rick and Morty, I did have to go on to new shows after that for Animals and Harmon Quest. It was a long learning curve. It wasn't definitely not the first day. It was like basically like a month or two of getting into the flow of things because the style is still being figured out.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
And it's also communication with the new crew and how things are going to flow on the production. So like Animals was a really complicated one because those the creators, they've never worked in animation.
Oh, wow.
So they didn't know how a lot of things were ran, and we also had like a communication thing go on where like they didn't really communicate very well what they wanted from us artists, or how to like trust in what like our abilities. So we were behind in schedule a lot just because of just figuring that out, and then also the style of the show. So
yeah, Animals also has quite a unique aesthetic to it.
It wasn't easy getting that aesthetic.
Yeah, like the closest thing that I can think of would be like Trip Tank has a kind of similar look or movement to it, but
where it's like loose.
Yeah, but there's nothing that's really like that. So I can see why that would be like an issue. Yeah,
when things have a formula, it helps. So when something doesn't have a formula, you're guessing the entire time whether or not this thing like looks good or matches a style. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and when it's their first animation project as well, it just means that the people at the top kind of don't know the processes that someone that's made a show would be able to. Yeah.
Exactly. And they were funny because whenever they would give us notes back, the notes are so funny. They would basically be like, oh, do like 20% more like cool, or 30% more like shitty, or like it was like he wrote notes based on percentages. This was Phil, and I was just like, okay, Phil. Let's try this out.
Yeah. So, how many years have you been working in the animation industry?
I've been my internship was 2012, so fall of 2012. So I always just say, I guess since 2012.
Yeah, awesome. So that's not very long.
No.
And you've worked on some pretty amazing shows. So what's it feel like to have worked on some really loved shows?
I feel lucky, because I almost didn't even have a choice in some of the things. Like Uncle Grandpa, I actually interviewed for Steven Universe, Clarence, and Uncle Grandpa, and I landed on Uncle Grandpa, and that ended up being actually like one of my favorites out of the three. Like, I don't know if it's just because I'm biased or because I worked on it, or just like I legit loved that show. The heart of it and everything the most. And then even Rick and Morty, it just happened to be available at the time, like they were testing for it, so that was the only like show that ever gave me a test. That was like my first legit test for character design and everything. I tried even before that to apply for other shows to do tests, but I wasn't getting anything. So it just happened that way. I don't know. And then after that, it was mostly like a Starburns people. After Rick and Morty, we just migrated together onto these cool projects.
Yeah, okay. So tell me more about your Rick and Morty test. Were there lots of people applying? Was it?
Tons, from what I heard. At the time,
because this is season 2, yeah? So season 1 had already happened and was already successful.
Yeah, it wasn't so much like I wasn't aware of how many people were applying so much, because I was very closed off to how popular that show got. So that didn't really like get to my mind so much. It was just the fact that it was my first test. I was like, oh God, I hope this is okay. And I already had some buddies that like knew the people of the show, or like that worked with the show before. That on Uncle Grandpa, like Mike Chillian was with us. He had a lot to do with the pilot, the Rick and Morty pilot. So I just asked him for some advice, and then I asked a character designer from Ben 10. I asked her for some help too, like on some technicalities of my test or whatever, like if everything looks okay. Or I had an issue turning something, like one little aspect of a character, and then she just gave me advice, like on a post-it, like, oh, maybe you could do this or something. But then I ended up figuring it out myself in the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess there was a ton of people applying. I just did the best I could,
Yeah.
with what I knew.
You obviously did well.
Yeah, thank you. I got something.
Yeah. So on Rick and Morty, you're credited as design cleanup, but I know
Yes.
that you do heaps more than that. So I'm going to list a few things, and after I say one, tell me kind of what it is that you do, like what these words mean. So character designs.
Yes, so character designs, as far as that goes, I don't really design any characters. I have a few times when it came down to like incidentals or something. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's mostly incidentals, but like the main characters that are like principal characters, I've never had a hand in that.
Yep.
I've only turned the characters around.
Yep, that's the next one, which is turnaround.
Yes,
so
character
transition.
turnarounds. Yes. I turn them around, and after they're turned around, I clean them up. Mostly, like, my stuff has to be clean by the end of the file. And then I do special poses, which is basically like if a character is doing something that's like outside their standard pose, which is basically either like maybe in a different perspective, maybe they're falling in a different perspective, or maybe they're getting their head chopped off. They need to show that. Or a weird, crazy expression on their face that is not in their standard pose or something. We have to display that for Bardell. And then character redresses every now and then. Like, Rick will have a different outfit or something. Yeah. Or Morty or whoever. Someone will have just a different outfit, and then we would dress it up.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. And incidentals that you mentioned, so that's like background characters, is that right?
Yeah, incidentals are basically characters that are not principal characters, like, the ones that have the lead roles. So I guess in like live action terms, you would say like extras or like principal extras.
Yeah, so incidentals could have dialogue, but could just be standing around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, awesome. I remember, I think it was on one of your podcasts or something, you mentioned that you drew yourself into Rick and Morty as an incidental.
It was the episode with Summer when she's in the spaceship in the beginning or whatever, and then that the spaceship's protecting her. Yeah. And like that episode, I forgot what the episode was called, but the episode was insane. And then at one point, like, there was some sort of like presidential conference going on, and they were like shaking hands with one of those aliens or whatever, and then like there was a camera crew that was like filming the whole conference thing happening, and I designed myself as a boom mic person, holding a boom mic, because I remember when I had to design that, my lead was just like, oh, so you need to draw a group of like camera crew people, and then I was like, what do they look like, because the storyboard looks so vague. He was like, you know what, this is your chance to design whatever you want. Like, if you've been wanting to put some friends into the show, put some friends into the show. This is your chance now. And I was just like, oh, I've been waiting for this moment. So I was like, hell yeah, you bet I'm gonna put myself in first.
Amazing.
And then I put my friend Elisa. Yeah.
That's so great. I know the scene that you're talking about, so I'll look out for it next time.
Yeah, and I posted some pictures of it too.
Yeah, awesome. So, have you done that on other shows as well?
Harmon Quest.
Yeah?
Harmon Quest.
You put yourself
we designed the whole... Yeah, I put myself in. I want to like have a show where somebody designs me. I hate designing myself all the time. But Harmon Quest, I put myself in. I actually designed some crew members into that show. We tried to get all the crew members into that show. Yeah. And I had someone else on Harmon Quest and Animals design my dog over here, Mr. Meeseeks. He's laying down over there. I had him designed into both Harmon Quest and Animals. In Animals, he actually has a line. Yeah. Which is great. I think he just says balls.
What
it's
else?
the dogs episode of season 1.
Yeah, okay. Amazing.
Yeah. And then he's a background character, like incidental, a background dog in Harmon Quest.
Yeah.
So that's about it.
Awesome. And how often do opportunities like that come around? How much creative control do you feel that you generally have?
Whenever you're a designer, pretty much. If you're a background designer, you can even design stuff like into background elements. Like if you're designing a room, you can put like a picture in a picture frame of something, like slip something in there, you know?
Yeah.
But when you're a designer, those opportunities come up more than you know, and then or you can make it happen, you know.
Yeah. As we've discussed, you do so many different things. How do you generally describe that to people that aren't in the animation industry or don't really know the industry?
How do I describe it? God, I remember when I tried describing conforming to people, that was so complicated. Or it still is complicated. Sometimes I don't, to be honest. I guess with character turnarounds, I just tell people, like, I'll position my body and I'll be like, so imagine you're taking a picture of someone at, you know, full frontal view. Imagine they turn slightly to the right and now it's 3/4 and then a little bit more and then now it's and then I explain the whole turntable, you know, like taking a camera and just like rotating around the person.
Yeah.
So turnarounds are not that hard to explain. Everything else, I guess departments, I always have to tell people like, yeah, backgrounds are a different department. Props are a different department. I just try to break it down as much as I can for them. Or they'll be like, wow, you animate the show? And I'm just like, sure, yes. Because they're just like, they're not really like, you know, interested in learning more.
Yeah. It's just like, it's my show.
I'll just give up. Sure.
I approve of that response. So, between season 2 and 3 of Rick and Morty, at least with the screening of them, the hiatus was like a year and a half. When season 2 finished, did you know that you were going to be working on season 3?
Yes.
And
how what?
And how do you go about finding work knowing that you're going to be going back to Rick and Morty at some stage?
So I didn't have to worry so much because I was with Starburns people and they already knew that our priority or our show was Rick and Morty and they knew we would be going back.
Yeah, okay.
So I never had to worry about that so much. I did know that I was going to work on the next season, and then at the same, like when the time drew closer, I actually started like getting scared that I wasn't because the competition started getting so high. I heard like people were going nuts, like people were asking me for tests and stuff out of nowhere, out of the blue, and everybody really wanted to land on that season. And then I was just like, well, I gotta make sure my spot's secure, and also like I kind of wanted to apply for character design this season as well. So I was kind of hoping like that, like I don't know. I was hoping I would secure that spot, and if not, I would at least get my old job. And it turned out the former cleanup artist from season 1 actually wanted to come back. So when I talked with the producer, he told me that, and I was just like, you're not giving up my job like, for that. Like, that person left, you know, after season 1. Like, they can't just come back and then kick me out of my job. Like, really? And then I like told him, I was like, Justin wanted me on this season, so you can't kick me out. It was crazy because the competition got so high that I felt like I had to defend my job, you know?
Yeah.
But no, yeah, the only thing was I didn't get to get that character design position this season. But I still got my old job back. So.
And what is it about character design that makes you really want that position?
I've always just been in love with characters. Growing up, whenever I would draw, it would always be the characters. And I always wanted to create my own too, and then like have that come to life and then have that be loved by others. And I had a wild imagination when I was little, and I always had imaginary friends as well when I was little. So everything was just about characters.
Yeah.
I do have a love for backgrounds too, depending on the style of the show. I would love to do backgrounds like Rick and Morty someday. It's just really those backgrounds are really complicated. So one day I will eventually work up to that point. But I do have an appreciation for backgrounds as well.
Yeah. And how much time, like every week, do you get to spend for your own art, if any?
Mostly weekends if I can. Very little. I have to make time. A lot of my free time goes to like active activities, because when you're sitting down every single day for 8 to 10 hours a day working and drawing, you get a little cabin fever, or you start to feel achy, like your body, it just really has a huge impact on your body. So I actually try to focus a lot of my free time on physical activities, and prioritize that over anything else. But there's still creative activities. Mostly I try to draw leisurely. I try. If there's not a bunch of social things going on over the weekend, you know.
Yeah. Do you at work use a Cintiq, or are you on a computer?
Yes.
Yeah.
We use the same setup that I have at home. Like
That's
we have
awesome.
a Mac computer and then a Cintiq.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was going to say, like, if you don't, then at home you can be like exercising while drawing because you've got a big screen to draw on. But
if you have that setup. And then there are times when you can work from home too, if we do have the setup. I've worked from home many times.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of working from home, how social is the work environment?
At home or at work?
At work.
At work, no. Okay. Like, because there's nothing social at home. The social environment's great. It depends on the setup of the environment. If you're in cubicles, it's a little more quiet. If you are, like, Rick and Morty was an open space. We're just in one little open area. It can get pretty loud. Harmon Quest was loud because we were in a very small room together. Yeah. And it was fun. We're like a family because a lot of us worked with each other for a very long time. And even if we don't, like, you basically become family, or you know people from other studios. It's a very small world. But everyone kind of, like, we all relate to each other because we all have, like, a similar background, you know?
Yeah.
So it's really, everyone's great in this industry. I love it.
Yeah. And if you're having like a hard day at work, like you're just feeling that something's not working, will you like typically just go around and speak to people about it, or?
I try not to, unless I do have close friends in the industry, but it would most likely be like outside of work. Even if it is inside of work, I'll just like kind of like bend down next to them at their desk and then talk with them. But or I'll just keep to myself. It depends on the person, you know, and how you are as a person. Yeah.
And now, so you're currently doing design cleanup, is that right, on Disenchantment?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this job is actually like way easier than most of my jobs that I've had. So it's literally just clean time, which it's not like there's not so much creativity to it. It's more skill, especially because I have to clean up backgrounds, and the backgrounds style of the show is a little like intense. But I love it. It's actually relaxing because I can just like put something on the other screen, listen to it or watch it, and then just clean up stuff all day long.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's more of like a meditative animation.
Yes. Yeah. And I love that stuff because every now and then I do get like a little overwhelmed with my creativity.
Besides the fact that you find the work meditative, are there any big differences between working on Disenchantment compared to like Rick and Morty and other shows that you've worked on?
Let me think. It's definitely a lot more work constantly at all times. It's a steady amount of work because we constantly have things to clean up. Like there's never a time where I'm like, oh, I finished my work today. You know, it's always like there's always going to be something to do. So with that means that we just have to find a very steady flow. But it feels a lot more relaxing, I guess, because when you do creative jobs, you are putting so much energy into creativity, and there are times when like that's not always flowing,
Yeah.
especially especially if you're like having a bad day or having a bad week or something. It will affect you mentally, whereas if you're doing something that's more monotonous, and you're not really using your brain power too much, you don't really need to be in a good headspace to do that. Unless it's serious. But you can literally just blank out and then just like have your hand do all the work, So it's definitely a lot more relaxing in that aspect. And it depends on the politics of the show too. Rick and Morty was a little intense on us mentally. There was a lot of stress this season going on. A lot of changes were happening. A lot of stuff was just going on, and like a lot of stuff was going on in the in the office. And also such a big show, so we were just like, we were all getting stressed out just over all of that. Animals and Harmon Quest. It was a matter of getting like used to just the style and everything of the show, but those were pretty. Those, I guess, I got into a good flow once I got the hang of the style. And it's always just about working at your own pace. Like you're gonna if you feel really paranoid about how fast you're going, I always like to see how much other people are getting done, or like communicate with other people, and to see like what they need done and everything. And if you do need help like getting some stuff done, every now and then they will delegate work to others. So like, for example, on Disenchantment, if we have too much on our plate and we need to get some designs in by a certain time or something, they will it's about communicating, and I will go and then I will tell them like, oh, like this is taking a little long. If there's anybody else that has is going faster or something with their designs or doesn't have as much on their plate, like did they take this instead? And they'll just delegate work accordingly. Or Rick and Morty, we had outhouse freelancers a lot. So if we couldn't get something done, like a show done, we would have a freelancer take bulk of work to help us out.
Yeah.
So I always feel like this pressure of everything being put on you, it's always about communication, and like if you need help, use the help, because they just want the show done, So, and they understand that like we all, stuff doesn't take 1 minute to do, it takes time.
Yeah.
And it helps when production people understand that. There have been productions where some production people didn't understand that, and they were learning that. And then they had to go through their own learning curve of, hey, artists don't literally whip up stuff in a second. So, you need to know that this is going to take time. Mm-hmm. So it's just communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you find that the type of person working on Disenchantment, like the other people working with you, are quite different to Rick and Morty?
Yes. I would say I'm a little more relaxed with them, and I feel like I don't want to put anyone down on Rick and Morty or anything. That's not what I'm trying to do. But as far as social dynamics, it is a little different. Every studio has their own vibe and their own atmosphere. The crew on Rick and Morty was I felt a little out of place with them versus this crew. I feel a little bit more in touch and accepted with them.
That's awesome.
It's a little weird. It's in my own head. It's different for everybody. Every studio just has their own vibes. But this team specifically, I work with 3 other cleanup. Are we good? Stupid video.
Yeah, we're good. I think.
Okay. I work with 3 other artists, cleanup artists. We all do the same thing.
Yeah.
So we have our own little team in the back. We're like a family in the back. Yeah. Every studio has their different vibes. I found that Rick and Morty and Starburns did have like a little weird vibe for me personally. I was stressed out a lot at those two studios. But I think Cartoon Network and Disenchantment have so far been the best atmospheres that I have loved the most.
Yeah.
The people at both of these studios, Rough Draft Studios and Cartoon Network, I have not had like one issue at all. I love everybody to death, and I feel so happy and comfortable where
That's
I work.
awesome.
Yeah, it's so important because there are going to be times where you're going to even question yourself if some jobs are even worth it if the atmosphere just ain't right, you know?
Yeah.
So.
And my last question is kind of funny to ask someone who has worked on so many like dream shows, but are there any shows or styles that you've not worked on that you would like to?
I always loved SpongeBob. That was a great show. Stylistically, though, I've always had like dreams of working on like, to be honest, like a lot of the detailed stuff. So, something I guess over here our equivalent would be like something like Avatar, but pretty much
The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because I was so into anime and I drew a lot of anime, a lot of the detailed action shows looked really like gorgeous to work on. But yeah, I don't know. I can't. That's a really hard question to like actually like if I were in that time, like what show would I apply to?
Yeah.
I guess it depends on my capabilities at the time or how I'm feeling like what I can do. Because there are times where I'm like, okay, what show do I realistically think I can do?
Yeah.
That's a good ask yourself because as far as like, for example, backgrounds, I know for a fact I can't do something as complicated as Rick and Morty at my skill level right now. But eventually you work up to that point where you do feel confident, you know. But right now, as far as background go, I would feel confident working on like most Cartoon Network shows where like the backgrounds aren't very complicated.
Yeah.
They're kind of simplistic, and every now and then they're a little bit more intricate, you know. So I would just look at the show stylistically and see if it's something that I'm capable of doing. And if it's a fun show, then I would go for it too. And there have been shows that I did want to apply to, like in the past couple years, and test for, but I never did get a test for it. Like We Bare Bears was one show that I wanted to work on.
Okay, I don't know that one.
You haven't heard it? It's
No.
it's a cute show at Cartoon Network. When the pilot came out, I was there when the pilot came out, and it was a very cute style show. And a lot of my natural styles are more on the either pretty or cute side, and also I love to draw animals a lot. So like that show just like it popped out to me because it looked really adorable.
Yeah.
Gravity Falls has always been one show that I wanted to work on because the backgrounds are so gorgeous.
Yep.
So stuff like that.
Yeah. Awesome. So before we wrap it up, we should plug your YouTube podcast. So you want to
stories?
say it again? You cut out.
Animation Success Stories. We have a YouTube channel, we have an Instagram, a Facebook, a Tumblr. Not a lot of people see our Tumblr. We do have a SoundCloud, but the episodes stopped on SoundCloud because SoundCloud starts charging after a certain point.
Yeah, okay.
We are going to get an iTunes very soon, and we have a Twitter account.
Awesome. I'll put links to at least some of those in the description.
Yeah.
And where can people find you online?
They can find my Tumblr for my art. It's sabrinamati.tumblr.com. And then my Instagram, I mostly post my artistic stuff on both of those. Instagram is more like photos and other things. Like Instagram is more life with my art. So my Instagram is the same thing. It's Sabrina Mati. And then I think Facebook is basically the same thing if people want to like add me on. I don't know. But Facebook is like more of a personal social thing.
Yeah.
But Yeah, so I have an Instagram and Tumblr at Sabrina Mati.
Cool.
Sabrina Mati. Yeah.
So links to those will be in the description. Thank you so much for doing this. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I apologize for all the technical difficulties.
That's fine. It's expected.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very flattered. This is my very first interview.
This is my first time interviewing a person besides high school projects.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great. That makes me feel great. That's first time ever.
Double first.
Yeah, right.
It's awesome.
So much. You're incredible.
So are you.